Hello everybody, it's Richard Lucas here and I'm back with another retrospective review, and today I'm going to be reviewing 007 The World Is Not Enough for the Nintendo 64. And I can hear you all crying out, why are you reviewing GoldenEye? GoldenEye is a much better game. Well, I know GoldenEye is a great game. You know, you don't need me to tell you how good that game is. I did debate whether I should do a GoldenEye review, but with these reviews I suddenly realised, why don't I review games that were kind of went under the radar, or that a lot of players may not have picked up, or that only a few people were aware of, rather than do the established games. I mean, I seem to play a lot of games on my channel, such as Sonic 2 on the Master System, rather than Sonic 2 on the Mega Drive, and I kind of like reviewing games that are different and were done by different companies. Games such as Castle of Illusion, when that come out, absolutely brilliant, but then the IP and the game engine was kind of given to Aspect, and they made like Land of Illusion. So I like it when different companies, you know, develop sort of the same sort of idea. And Eurocom, I have to say, did a fantastic job with The World Is Not Enough. I do remember this game as a kid. I played shed loads of GoldenEye, literally probably like everybody else, all day, all night, just playing GoldenEye Deathmatch. And as I said, I did debate doing a review of GoldenEye, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to make this channel more about just reviewing those sort of secondary games, or those titles which probably weren't as successful as the sort of mainstream ones. So I do remember my little brother, when I was a kid, I'm going off on a tangent, he got this because I think he wanted more GoldenEye basically, but obviously Rare had lost the license, so I think the closest thing was this, The World Is Not Enough. So I remember him playing it, and I think he did enjoy it, and I think I had a little go in it, but I couldn't get very far. And I think I just put it down. I just thought, you know what, this is just way too difficult for me, and maybe because I was a little bit of a GoldenEye snob, I was like, oh, you know, it doesn't play like GoldenEye, so therefore it can't be that much good. But anyway, last year I bought a Nintendo 64, I got a stack of games with it, and this was actually with it. And I was like, even annoying, oh, okay, you know, just one of those titles they just pull in there. And I thought, you know what, should I play it or should I not? So for months it sort of sat on my shelf just looking at me, and I'm sort of very curious. I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. And so I started playing it, and you know what, I really kind of enjoyed it. It took me a while to actually get into, but once I did, I actually felt a little bit more like Bond in this game than I did in GoldenEye. You know, and as I says, GoldenEye isn't a top game, but there were some things about that, I don't know, just kind of put me off. I mean, I will probably mention it in the main review that in certain levels, if you make a mistake, the game throws hordes and hordes of infinite soldiers at you, and some are actually quite tougher, and the game can feel slightly unbalanced, whereas The World Is Not Enough doesn't do that. It gives you a set amount of enemies, you know what you're doing. If you die, you die, you just sort of learn the level and sort of do it that way. So I played through the game on Agent and Secret Agent mode, so I have all that footage, so I figured, you know what, I'm going to do a retrospective review. So, enough talking guys, let's get this done. Let's review some 007 The World Is Not Enough, and let's see if this game can really live up to the legendary status, or the legendary title that is GoldenEye.
I must admit, I didn't think much of Eurocom's The World Is Not Enough first time I laid eyes on it. It might have seemed like an important game after GoldenEye, but after that impressive outing from Rare, it looked like a little wannabe in Prison Grace. Looked like a stiff breeze would blow it over compared to GoldenEye. That was my first impression of the game. After playing it for a while, I could see why many people might mistake it for being generic. It had a pace and a style, a walk and a talk that just wasn't normal around here. Although it borrowed much from GoldenEye, the game strolled like a man in the park without a care or a worry. Like it had on an invisible coat that would shield it from the criticisms it might receive. Yes, I think it would be fair to say I liked The World Is Not Enough from the start. Video game introduction. December the 8th, 2000 saw Electronic Arts release The World Is Not Enough for the Nintendo 64. After Tomorrow Never Dies was met with very mixed reviews, many critics were questioning the move to a third-person perspective, as well as the lack of multiplayer modes and the awkward controls which slightly hindered the gameplay somewhat. So, after taking this feedback on board, EA decided to go back to the drawing board and take inspiration from Rare's 1997 smash hit GoldenEye and create a game in that style, taking 007 back to the first-person perspective. In fact, in order to try and make better use of the Bond license, EA made the decision to have 3 completely different developers working on each version. Black Ops Entertainment would once again handle the PlayStation version, 2N Productions worked on the Game Boy Color version, and Eurocom were tasked with handling the development of the Nintendo 64. Thankfully, the game was a success and sold much more copies than Tomorrow Never Dies. This was due to Eurocom replicating the same kind of gameplay, action, missions, and multiplayer that made GoldenEye a success. It can't have been easy to borrow heavily from Rare's smash hit game, as GoldenEye revolutionised the way that first-person shooters were created, adding in lots of features such as enemies reacting to being shot, the use of gadgets, and in-depth level design. I do feel that this could have been why Tomorrow Never Dies was done differently, and I also feel that EA wanted to make a game based on their own merits and ideas, and so perhaps were under pressure from gamers to make a game like GoldenEye, as there was definitely an outcry for more James Bond in the first person style. Also, Rare after GoldenEye went on to make Perfect Dark, which was built upon GoldenEye's success and thus didn't have the license at that time.
No hard feelings, Mr. Bond. We're even. Soon you'll feel nothing at all.
The World Is Not Enough once again puts the player in the shoes of MI6's 007 agent James Bond, as he is out to stop a terrorist from causing a massive nuclear meltdown.
King asked me for help. I sent 009 to kill Renard. Electra managed to escape before 009 caught up with the target in Syria. He put a bullet in his head, but Renard somehow survived. The bullet is still there, and it will eventually kill him. But until then he can feel no pain, and push himself harder than any normal man.
This new villain Renard is unlike anyone Bond has ever faced. Thanks to a bullet lodged in his brain, he can feel no pain. Even though he is slowly dying, Renard wants to create a nuclear explosion that will destroy Istanbul, which in turn would also destroy the Russians' oil pipeline. It's a race against time for 007 to put a stop to this madman and eliminate the terrorist threat. Eurocom worked tirelessly on the Nintendo 64 version and would push the system to create not only a game that allowed far better draw distances, graphics and gameplay, but wanted this latest game to be even faster than GoldenEye so the action can be a lot more intense. This game even takes advantage of the expansion pack's extra memory, so the game looks and plays a lot better than many other titles that were out at the time. The game follows the plot of the movie very closely and even introduces a few original missions that the developers threw in to expand the game's levels, such as having to storm into the London Underground to take care of a bomb with a very strict time limit, whilst also taking out terrorists and rescuing hostages. The game also features an on-the-rails shooting level in which Bond is on skis and really tries to implement some new ideas and features that were just not present in GoldenEye. For example, there is a greater reliance on playing smarter here, timing your shots and not going in all guns blazing due to some of the mission requirements encouraging stealth or caution. Also, Bond gets to use his gadgets much more here and some missions can't be completed without them, so anyone who has played GoldenEye will feel really comfortable here. The game even has cutscenes which help move the plot along with some voice acting.
Expecting Davidoff? He caught a bullet instead of a plane. You can't kill me. I'm already dead. Not dead enough for me. I should be grateful. You delivered the money, you killed King, and now you brought me the plane. That bomb will never leave this place. Neither will you. There's no point in living if you can't feel alive. Drop the gun, now!
All right, Arkle. You better find the officer in charge and let him know you're here.
Unfortunately, none of the actors from the movie are present, except for John Cleese, who reprises his role as R.
R is here to tell you about the security system.
Apart from the patrolling guards, you'll need to watch out for the security cameras. They've got motion sensors with a limited range. Each set of cameras is linked to a nearby security office, so your best course of action is probably finding those security centers and disabling their systems.
I actually knew it was him, as his voice is unmistakable, and I don't think anyone could have replicated him anyway. This game has a lot going for it, and it's time to delve deeper to analyse this game in much more detail in another Richard Lucas retrospective review.
Your English is very good for a Russian.
I studied at Oxford.
The bomb's up ahead. I'll catch up to you. I want to check something.
Video game story. So the game follows the film quite closely, and as I mentioned, also has some original plot thrown in to enhance the game's levels and variety. James Bond has been assigned by MI6 to go to Spain to collect a briefcase full of cash for a Mr. Sir Robert King, who was a friend of M. Bond also had another agenda when he meets the banker. He wants to know why Sir Robert was trying to purchase a report that was taken from another MI6 agent who was murdered for it.
I didn't come just for the money. The report you sold King was stolen from an MI6 agent who was killed for it. I want to know who killed him.
He also wants to know who killed him and why. After some tough talk, the banker is about to inform Bond who the murderer was. However, before he can tell him, the banker's female assistant shoots him in cold blood and then runs away before Bond can stop her. Despite this, he manages to escape Spain with the money and promptly returns to MI6, where he hands over the money to King.
James Bond, Sir Robert King.
Ah, the man who retrieved my money. Excellent job, can't thank you enough.
Sir Robert is an old friend. I helped him years ago when his daughter Electra was kidnapped by the terrorist Renard. Still, all that's in the past. Sir Robert thought that the report he paid for would identify the terrorists who have attacked his new oil pipeline in Kazakhstan. Then he discovered it was actually about the nuclear arsenals in the former Soviet republics, so he turned it over to me.
Something's not right about all this. King, the money!
Whilst Bond and M are talking, M reveals that she helped Sir Robert years ago when his daughter Electra had been kidnapped by Renard. She also says that the report that Sir Robert had paid for was to reveal the identity of a terrorist who had threatened his oil pipeline in Kazakhstan. After this, a huge explosion ensues, and MI6 is immediately overrun with Renard's goons, trying to wipe everyone out, including King. Bond must then work with the rest of MI6 to shut off certain areas within the building to stop terrorists getting out, activate the sprinkler systems, protect M, who's being held hostage in her own office, and finally try and find Sir Robert King, who is downstairs in the vaults.
Here, take this pin! It was the detonator!
Sir Robert.
After fighting his way through, he discovers that the explosion was caused by the briefcase that King was carrying. It was rigged to explode all along. After this has taken place, Q informs Bond by radio that the female who shot the banker and rigged the case is trying to escape via the Thames. Bond quickly jumps into a nifty boat to try and track her down. He chases her to the River Thames, which is naturally overrun with terrorists who are holding a number of hostages that need to be rescued.
Target is moving away, Bond!
After blasting his way through the many rooms and using his grapple hook, Bond must get to the London Underground before the female assassin escapes. Upon arriving, however, 007 finds a police blockade right outside the entrance.
Hold on, sir. This area is sealed off. We have a hostage situation. I'm with MI6. Let me through.
He is quickly informed that the terrorists have taken over the station and there is a bomb set to detonate somewhere in there. Bond must work his way through various platforms, shooting the masses of terrorists who inhabit the station, and must also rescue hostages, locate the bomb, defuse it, and then work his way back to the exit to try and catch up with the female shootist.
Tell me who's behind this. I can protect you.
Not from him!
Once he finds her and before he can talk her round, she blows herself up, before telling Bond that she can never be safe from him, meaning Renard, the game's main antagonist.
The money had been treated to turn it into an explosive, which was triggered by a signal via King's lapel pin.
Bond then must travel to Azerbaijan to protect King's daughter Electra, who is leading the construction of a brand new oil pipeline, as it is feared that Renard might try and kidnap her again. M warns Bond that she had sent 009 to try and kill Renard, and despite the agent managing to shoot him in the head, the bullet lodged in his brain, which in turn stopped him from being able to feel any pain, makes him considerably more dangerous than most men. Even though the bullet is slowly killing Renard anyway, he plans to launch a nuclear attack and destroy an oil pipeline in Istanbul, so it's up to Bond to once again try and rid the world of another deadly villain. Video game gameplay. The World Is Not Enough is a first-person shooting game that has the player assume the role of 007 James Bond, as he must tackle 14 all-new missions based upon the plot of the movie. Just like in GoldenEye, Bond is given a briefing before each mission, which details the requirements and objectives that must be met for it to be a success. There are 3 difficulties that the player can select from: Agent, Secret Agent and 00 Agent, and the higher the difficulty, the more tasks Bond must achieve and more enemies he must fight. There is a multiplayer mode which you can play against another person in various arenas, but I will be focusing purely on the one player mode as the deathmatch is pretty much self-explanatory. Bond has to move throughout each stage using any weapons or gadgets he has already equipped in his arsenal towards the many baddies that block his path or obstacles in his way. He normally starts off with a standard issue pistol, but after defeating enemies with more advanced weaponry, he can collect their weapons to build up a much more impressive arsenal of guns to battle the many baddies awaiting him on each stage, as well as any excess ammo lying around. Eurocom have added a few new moves and skills essential for progression in most of the missions he will face. For one thing now, he can jump, swim and grapple, and there's much more incentives for using your gadgets this time round. Although some are actually required to help complete a mission, you can use a wide array of deadly secondary weapons such as knockout darts, a stunner which shocks the enemy and in some cases makes them drop their weapons. Grenades can also be picked up to help clear the room if you're in a jam, and of course Bond can use his fists to knock out anyone who gets in his face. The 007 agent also has a health bar which indicates how much life he currently has. After taking damage from enemy fire or explosions, this decreases. A game ends when he loses all of his health or if he fails one of the mission objectives, and as there are no checkpoints, he must try the mission again from the beginning. The game will save your game after every mission, provided you have a memory pack which slots into the N64 controller. For some reasons the game does not allow you to save on the cartridge itself, unlike the majority of other N64 games, which is a real shame. Hidden throughout most of the missions is the bulletproof vest, which provides Bond with a full blue bar, which appears underneath his main health bar. The vest will absorb any damage and protect your life bar. This means that his main health bar does not decrease until the vest's life bar has completely gone, so this means that he can survive a little longer throughout a tougher mission and may get him out of a jam. Each mission places enemies and other characters as central to the progression of the game in key locations throughout each one. Bond must eliminate the enemies, protect hostages or other NPCs in some mission objectives, use his gadgets to knock out cameras to avoid detection, open safes to obtain swipe cards or to reveal important documents, and even blow up fuel dumps whilst riding on skis. Twine always throws something new at you and really pushes home the fact that you cannot just carelessly blast your way through a mission, as it will be over before it really begins. The player must read the briefings very carefully and take care to listen to any hints or tips that appear in some of the missions. If Bond deviates from the advice he is given, then this will result in a mission failure, so he must work carefully throughout each of the game's 14 missions until he's beaten the final stage and stopped Renard. From here he can then try the game on a higher difficulty, where more enemies, objectives and obstacles await him. In some cases extra requirements take place whilst James is in the mission itself, which adds a great deal of tension and variety. I should also mention that whenever Bond sees water he can swim, and this is something he will have to do occasionally. When he goes underwater, a blue bar appears and decreases the longer Bond is under. If Bond can come up for air, then the blue bar fills up again. Once he goes back down, he will have a full bar. If Bond is underwater and the blue bar has run down, his health will start to deteriorate. Luckily, provided you have enough health, the game doesn't just outright kill you, it lets you know your health is ebbing away and does give you a fighting chance to try and come up for air, which is extremely helpful. Video game presentation. The World Is Not Enough is one of the best looking first person shooters on a Nintendo 64, and although the graphics seen in GoldenEye were extremely detailed and impressive, there was a lot of fog and the draw distance to showcase the level as Bond moved was okay, but you couldn't see too far in the distance. Eurocom have pulled out all the stops to try and outshine that game, and I have to say that they've really succeeded. The locations all look amazing and you can really see far into the distance with no mist or fog. The game is further enhanced if you have the N64's expansion pack, meaning that you can enhance the look of the game in the options menu. Okay, so I'm now going to talk about my personal opinions of what I feel this game did well and also what really annoyed me about it. Now please be aware, I absolutely love this game and I think it's up there as one of the best first person shooters I've ever played. But there were just a few things that hindered my enjoyment of it, and occasionally I had to turn off my N64 because I was tearing my hair out with frustration. Please don't think I'm going to unfairly rant or bash this game, as it is really not my intention. The game moves and feels great and anyone can pick up and play it, and I will say that as good as the controls are, it might take you a little while to get to grips with using the many gadgets and knowing how to use them. I honestly had so many issues with the grapple at first because I didn't realise that I had to aim for a yellow and black striped bar or square usually on the ceiling, indicating that the grapple can be used in that point. As impressive as the levels are in the game, the cutscenes can still look a little blurry, and I do wish that Eurocom spent a bit more time improving the look of the characters, as they don't seem as detailed as they could be. I was also surprised to find that none of the original cast from the film, aside from John Cleese, reprised their roles here. This is something I don't quite understand. I know the game came out a year after the film, but having the actual actors provide voice work would have enhanced it considerably more. I mean, they could have even added in some extra dialogue, which would have made it much more than just a game that replicates the film word for word. It's not a big deal, as the voice actors they got were okay, but at times it just sounded a little wooden to me, and even with the cutscenes I still found it hard to know what was happening most of the time.
There's snow and ice up there, so I have to do this on skis. Are you here for a reason? Who are you?
Arkov. Mikhail Arkov. And you are Miss...
Dr. Jones. Christmas Jones. Papers, please.
I do also think that the game should have had more dialogue, interaction and cutscenes with Christmas Jones and Electra.
Okay,
I mean,
take the
Christmas is a
elevator.
character
Your friends
Bond
are
spends a
already
lot of
down
time with in the film, and when they meet in the game it just feels so short, and then all of a sudden Bond has to protect her in the missions. The only real interaction they get is at the end of the game. So I do feel that any scenes with Bond and another girl that involves him sweet talking her should be left to the imagination, but I just think there could have been a little bit more dialogue and conversation so Bond and the girls could have got to know each other a bit more.
Good afternoon, sir. Can I help you?
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Ah, Mr. Bond. We have a safety deposit box waiting for you. I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Sorry to disturb you.
I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Sorry to disturb you.
I also wish that some of the non-playable characters Bond meets would be a little more helpful. On the first stage, the bank, some people just flat out refuse to help Bond and just seem to ignore him outright or even have a conversation with each other. I have no idea to this day why the World Is Not Enough does this. Truth is, I don't want to know. I would like to think that Eurocom were creating characters that don't speak, but what they were saying was so beautiful that it cannot be expressed in words, and makes your heart ache because of it. I tell you, despite this, their likeness soared higher and farther than anybody in a Bond game dares to dream. It is like some beautiful bird flapped into a trapped little cage and made the invisible walls inside each level dissolve away.
Sorry, I can't help
For the briefest moment,
disturb you.
everybody in the game felt free. The missions are incredible, fast-paced, awesome, different, and have a wide variety of things to do, so you never really find yourself getting bored with having to do the same old thing. Some missions require Bond to use caution and stealth, whilst others have you racing around taking out rocket launcher welding baddies, whilst avoiding a giant chopper with sharp rotating blades. One thing this game does better than GoldenEye is the fact that it doesn't simply just spawn a horde of infinite enemies at you in each level. I mean, in GoldenEye, and I hate to bash it, but some missions in that game, like the bunker, were just throwing an endless number of enemies at you. This meant that the odds were severely stacked against the 00 agent and would result in lots of deaths. Twine is different, where as it does increase the number of baddies on each difficulty, it doesn't do this too much. It will throw in a few extra here and there, but for the most part it won't spawn an infinite amount, and Bond gets a set number of baddies to deal with on each level. It's a little fairer that in most cases you know what's coming. I do admit that on later stages, particularly on the City of Walkways, it not only gives you a tough enemy roster, but also forces you to strategize. This game did something that GoldenEye only did a little of, in that it made me play a lot smarter and carefully, and because I did that I survived most missions, as they were very much not just a suggestion but the core mechanics of most missions, and to deviate from them meant quick death. As I mentioned, the game follows the film in terms of plot, but sometimes when playing this for the first time, it can be really unclear what Bond needs to do, so I think it will take a while to learn the structure and sometimes tough requirements. One example comes really early on, as Bond must chase a female assassin through the Thames. Now, the opening level cutscene shows Bond chasing the woman in a boat. Bond has to pursue her throughout the level. After getting near the end, you are informed that the target is getting away. Naturally, because I'm on the Thames, I thought I had to get to a boat, and I couldn't quite see that I needed to climb up a staircase which seemed hidden to get to the London Underground. Also, some levels, as good as they look, left me a little confused and I couldn't always tell where I needed to go. I really hated the mission where Bond must chase bullion through the streets in the Turncoat mission. Basically, you must keep up with him and get to the rooftops or you run out of time. Now, not only did I have to jump across some roofs, which was kind of awkward as I kept falling to my death, well, having got to almost the last part of the level, I kept failing because I couldn't see that Bond had to drop down through a small opening on the roof and must continue the chase. And what really made this level frustrating for me was that all I heard throughout was how M's life was on the line and how Bond had to hurry up, and it was incredibly difficult and sometimes painful to get through. Another thing that really got me about this game was that the game punished you if you fell from a certain height. In most cases it can outright kill you or drain your health significantly. I think it's great that Eurocom went for realism, but on the very last mission I had to use the grappling hook to try and work my way out of the submarines, and because I mistimed my jump and fell off the grapple, the game killed me outright, and this meant I had to start the missions all over again. I do understand that Bond is not invincible, but I really actually felt at the time that the height I fell from would not have killed me in real life. I really enjoyed the second level, King's Ransom, where MI6 was under attack from terrorists. It had security guards helping Bond wipe out the enemy and advising him on what to do. It was nice to play a level where you had to work together as a team, and although most of the guards got wiped out, it wasn't just a case of only James Bond can save the day, which I thought was really awesome. One of my favourite missions on the game was the Night Watch mission, where Bond must not use his weapons and must do some Solid Snake sneaking around the mansion, taking out guards with his knockout darts, disabling cameras, tapping phones, and in higher difficulties try to take photos before Davidoff arrives and avoiding Gabor, who is patrolling the guards. Although I failed this mission time and time again, I finally beat it using stealth, and it to me felt like such a huge accomplishment. It was probably my favourite mission on the game. So Eurocom really emphasised that you must play a mission a certain way to win, which was awesome. Some missions can be completed in multiple ways, for example that sinking feeling, the mission in which Bond must board Renard's submarine. On that one you can either sneak on board the sub hoping no one will see you, or you can take out the baddies on deck first. This can be extremely difficult because once the soldiers press the alarm, this can cause Bond to fail the mission as more soldiers enter the area. Whichever way you choose to do the mission, once you're on board the submarine, you need to then ensure you destroy all the alarms so the guards cannot call for reinforcements. It's a simple, straightforward level that gives you a few ways to beat it. The music is really good and suits each level really well. I think that all the music on the game has been completely made from scratch, and I really felt that sense of urgency with the London Underground's music, which added a lot of tension as I blasted the baddies trying to locate and defuse the bomb. They are a perfect accompaniment to the gameplay, and I never felt that any track was not on par or ruined the experience for me. I need to say this also, Eurocom, this game is absolutely amazing, stunning in fact, but where is the Bond intro? I turned on the game expecting to see it, but it's nowhere to be found. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it would have been nice for it to be included. As I mentioned, although I did have a few gripes with this game, it is still a worthwhile one to play, and I don't want to do a which is better video because I don't feel it would be right to constantly talk about GoldenEye and its innovations. We all know how good that game is. The World Is Not Enough, in my opinion, actually does a lot of things better than GoldenEye. Firstly, on agent mode, it's a lot more manageable and it's not so frustrating when you fail a mission. Everything is a lot more straightforward and you get much more of a balanced experience. I will finally say that the one mission that really got my adrenaline going and took me several attempts to do was the City of Walkways 1 level. On secret agent mode, this is extremely tough, as not only has Bond have to deal with standard enemies who, due to the increased difficulty, are a lot more trigger happy and intelligent, the game then throws in some rocket launcher baddies that can instantly take you out of the game. I cursed this level over and over, because once I dealt with them and I got past them, it just threw some more at me, and I was wetting myself, I was panicking, and I was strafing very carefully. No word of a lie, I was physically shaking after I completed the mission because it was just so difficult. So basically, you really need to practice and learn the enemy placements on the higher difficulty levels. Final level and video game ending. Okay, so you've blasted your way through the game's 13 missions, and after rescuing Christmas Jones and destroying the submarine steering, it sinks to the bottom of the ocean. And now Bond has to swim through trying to find the right route in order to find and destroy Renard. You see there's a red bar on screen that builds up gradually, and this represents the time Bond has to get to Renard before he sets off the nuclear explosion. Not that you have to get there super fast. This is easier said than done, as the swimming can feel really awkward and it's just really jerky. I find having to make Bond swim in first person mode is just a real chore, and it took me several attempts to not only get used to the movements but to also try and reach the various areas to be able to come up for air. Bond can also pick up some extra weapons here and ammo as he tries to navigate the labyrinth of different tunnels and sections. It can be extremely annoying, but once you have the route memorised it becomes a little easier. Once you make it through, Bond emerges in a small flooded section and must take out some guards before grappling to the top. It is up here that most of Renard's thugs await the 007 agent, and once again if you screw up using the grapple and fall down, the Bond will be killed outright, so you need to time it and ensure you land on solid ground. Once you finally make it, you will notice a round button. There's no final boss to beat. All you need to do is to push the button and Renard will be speared and die. It is all kind of a little, okay, what do I do now because the main villain's dead? Honestly, I didn't see the movie, so I was expecting something like an epic final confrontation, but you don't get that here. All you get is, I feel nothing, which is pretty cool, but I would have liked to find a boss confrontation. I like to think that the last thing that went through his head other than that bullet was to wonder how the hell James Bond ever got the best of him. After this, Bond must then try and find his way out of the submarine by using his watch grapple. Again, if you fall off the grapple too far, then you are killed and must start all over again. Once you make it up, you must watch out for the last few guards and steam pipes, which will severely injure or kill you. This last section really annoyed me as I got lost, stuck, and just damn right confused most of the time. I couldn't see who was shooting me or where they were. However, I finally gritted my teeth and worked it out and grappled slowly and climbed up, and this allowed me to take out the last wave of baddies with a minimum of fuss. Finally, after grappling the last part, Bond makes it out and the cutscene shows Bond swimming out with Christmas After this we see a final scene with the two celebrating and then a lengthy credit screen.
I've always wanted to have Christmas in Turkey.
Congratulations, you have beaten the game. This game does actually give you target times to complete certain missions in, and if you do them fast enough then you unlock extra stuff in multiplayer mode, which is okay, but there didn't seem to be anything for the main game, which I was very disappointed with. I guess Eurocom were trying to push the multiplayer aspect of the game, but it would have been really nice to unlock some infinite weapons to be used in the single player mission. I did manage to beat the game on both Agent and Secret Agent mode, but found 007 to be incredibly difficult and I couldn't do it. I really tried, guys. However, despite not being able to do 007 mode, I actually really felt like I'd become a lot more skilled at the game. Now, I don't feel the need to replay the game as there's nothing really to unlock in one player mode, and I guess my only real reason for wanting to replay it was trying to become a little more efficient on the main missions. However, despite this and the gripes I had with the game, I was more than satisfied with the ending at least, and thoroughly enjoyed this game much more than I thought I would. Final thoughts. Oh, I wish I could tell you that the world is not enough for the good fight, and GoldenEye let it be, relinquishing its crown. I wish I could tell you that, but the world of James Bond is no fairy tale world. I couldn't say which is better. Most people would probably tell you GoldenEye was. It seems things went on like that for a while, as both games consist of routine and then more routine. Every so often the world is not enough would show up with a few bruises, which kept the player frustrated. The game critics kept at it. Sometimes Twine was able to fight them off, sometimes not. And that's how it went for The World Is Not Enough. That was its routine. Having to play like GoldenEye was the worst for it, and I also believe if things had gone on that way, it would have got the best of it. The World Is Not Enough for the Nintendo 64 is one of the best first-person shooters for the system. Although most would probably argue that GoldenEye is the better game, I will say that yes, GoldenEye does most things a lot better than this game. However, The World Is Not Enough easily eclipses Rare's game by introducing a more balanced and varied experience. Again, there are no infinite amount of enemies that will appear and force Bond to do or die. The graphics are much more defined and make good use of the expansion pack. Yes, GoldenEye did encourage you to play stealthy, but, and this is just my opinion, the situation would change very rapidly if Bond did attract too much attention, and I would end up being forced to rush through because of a simple error. When The World Is Not Enough says be stealthy, it really means it, and I just felt it's much more of a prominent feature, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the game. Overall, it did take me a while to adjust to it, but once I did, I really got into it, and the difficulty, whilst can be extremely overwhelming on Secret Agent and above, that feeling of satisfaction when you eventually break through and win is unbelievable. If you have played GoldenEye to death and want some more Bond first-person action, then I cannot recommend it highly enough. It does have its problems, but as I mentioned, once you adapt to the sometimes unfair elements and immerse yourself in the game, it really opens up. So with that being said, I give The World Is Not Enough a shaken and not stirred 4.4 out of 5. Although most people would probably say that GoldenEye is the better game, again I will reiterate, The World Is Not Enough does things a lot better than GoldenEye ever did in terms of stealth, graphics, it's a lot faster, and just much more of a balanced game, which I kind of enjoyed. So I definitely highly recommend this game if you haven't played it and want some more Bond action.
Okay, so there you go guys, that is The World Is Not Enough for the Nintendo 64. I hope you've enjoyed this review. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out my Retro Play channel and my videos, and please don't forget to comment, like and subscribe to support the channel. Keep checking back for new retro content, and please don't forget to give me some feedback as well. And I'll have another retrospective review up for you very soon. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again.